Thanks for listening to our podcast. As usual, I am Craig.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Josh.
And this week, or this episode where we are all together, we are doing Kyle's pick. So, Kyle, if you want to start us off.
Yes. So we're going to be talking about The Cure, or just Cure, from 1997. I think we'll talk about that one first. So basically, it's a Japanese thriller, borderline on horror, but not really, about a serial killer who is going around hypnotizing people to commit murders, and the detective that's trying to solve it. It's a lot more philosophical than that, but that's kind of the best plot synopsis. This is only my second time watching this, but I remember it making kind of a big impression. And so it's Kiyoshi Kurosawa wrote and directed it, who made Pulse, Craig's favorite.
Yeah. We've actually talked about him a lot on this. We did Sweet Home. He pops up a lot for some reason on this podcast.
He's got a lot more that I want to see. And you still need to see Charisma.
Yeah.
Because you would really like it. It's similar to these two in that it's like, I don't know what genre it is. He kind of bends genres, but it has a lot of like eco stuff underneath. Anyway, so I kind of remember it being more graphic than the last time I watched it, although there is a good face removal moment. But it's kind of a very philosophical examining of moral repression to some extent. I don't know. It's not even quite horror, honestly. But I want to hear what you guys think, and we'll go on.
We should actually maybe do a Pulse episode. I actually just saw that for the first time not that long ago.
We should.
Yeah. I was going to actually suggest it without going too much off topic, because we're talking about Cure for you, Kyle. But I was going to suggest it for my pick, my follow-up pick. But yeah, I think it'd be a fun one to do. I liked it a lot. I read up on it a while ago because of Pulse. I think so. They have the special edition thing. I was reading. I think it was in the booklet, or it could have been some other thing I was checking out, where they said that Pulse, or Cure, Charisma, and Pulse are kind of a trilogy in a way, with that character. Even though he's barely in Pulse. He's only at the beginning and ending. But they said it's some sort of, I guess, trilogy. Anyways, to this movie, I liked it a lot. I would agree. It's like I don't know if it's a supernatural crime, but it's not even really that supernatural in a sense. But it goes with a lot of his themes, where it deals more about the philosophy than the actual horror or violence element of it. And for me, that's really interesting. And it makes you really think. It kind of takes this, standard. This isn't necessarily, but a lot of times he takes these standard that could fall into cliche tropes and make something entirely his own. So I always give him credit for that. But no, it has some. I don't even know if there's really a lot of twists and turns. You're just along for the ride. I think there's just this building. In the same way, I guess, going back to Pulse, because I know more people might have seen that, since that's the big one that came over to the States. It's like this building sense of dread throughout the whole thing, and that's really, I think, until the final moment even. So I really liked it. I looked up immediately after watching it, Charisma, and saw that it was on Amazon for $8 to buy the DVD. So I think
I have a copy I can share. I'll have to double check.
Okay. Yeah, I give it 2 thumbs up.
Yeah, it was. After this is the first time I'd ever seen it, and I felt like it fit really well into the early or late 90s, early 2000 Japanese horror kind of, I don't even know what style, maybe. This obviously, as we've said, isn't necessarily horror. I don't even know what the hell you would call it. It was like, the word that I kept thinking of was like meditative almost. But yeah, it does sort of defy, simple genre placing. But I guess, in terms of those like late 90s, early 2000 J horror films that obviously were just huge at that moment, it had a lot of similarities, I felt like, in that, I mean, not that it was like similar to anything specifically, but just being really fucking weird, being long, being slow, like every character had some kind of weird thing about them, like weird flaw almost. So yeah, I don't know. It just, as soon as I saw that it was, Kurosawa and it was from 1997, I was like, well, fuck yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because it's, to me anyway, it certainly like fits that time frame of what was going on in Japan. Even though, like I said, it's not like The Ring in terms of horror. But yeah, it was interesting. The guy that is the student, or the former student, what the hell's his name, or what do they call him?
I can't remember.
Like,
they find out his name. Yeah, Mamaya. Yeah,
there you go, Mamaya. Okay, so the guy that the actor that plays that character, is just fucking fuck all weird, and it was like getting to the point where I wanted to kill that guy so bad because of, and especially, I don't even remember the specific scene that it was, but it was one of those scenes where, and it was toward the end or getting closer to the end, where the detective, who's the main character of the story, is, I think he's like he's doing some kind of interrogation, and that motherfucker just keeps answering every question with a question, and I was just like, oh my god, this is gonna make me freak the fuck out. And so I was sort of getting into the same mindset as the detective character, because you can just tell that he's about ready to fucking snap because of this guy being that annoying. And as I was like, that's just too easy though. In my mind, I'm thinking it's too easy for the detective to just, end up snapping and murdering the guy. And then what happens? He snaps and murders the guy. And I don't know. It was effective in making you sort of complicitly in the same, I guess, shoes as the detective character was, because you literally, especially in dealing with that character, who I guess you'd call the villain of the film, you want to be you are the detective basically, and your feelings and everything are really in line. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah, that actor does a really good job of just being like inexplicably creepy and mysterious, and you just can't ever pin him down. But
it's so strange.
But that's where it gets interesting though too, because he's just this, like, he doesn't really do anything. He's definitely hypnotizing some people, but he's mostly just being this existential questioner. Like, he just keeps asking people, "Who are you?"
Yeah.
"Who are you?" until they like break down.
And it's like he, he's so like lethargic. Like, it's almost like he's constantly stoned, and it's like there's nothing menacing about this dude at all, but then that kind of makes him menacing.
Yeah, he's so calm that it's creepy.
Yeah.
And everything, like every murder is so deadpan too. That's what,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a very Japanese style thing to do, but I love that. Like, especially the first murder has almost like happy music too. And this guy, like, we don't even know what's going on. He's just there with a prostitute, and then he just takes a pipe and just kills her. And you're like, okay, holy shit.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you say it reminds you of The Ring and stuff, though, too, because it, from what I read, this kind of kicked off the J-horror craze. I guess this was one of the first ones.
That's what I thought. Just being from, it was 97, right? So yeah, it had to have been, yeah.
It also seems like it's kind of linked to what was in the 90s, at least from Western audiences. The Japanese version, there was like Seven, there was all of these where they weren't technically horror, but these very dark crime thrillers that borderlined on that.
Yeah.
Kind of, in a way, it feels like the Japanese equivalent to that, I guess.
Yeah, I listened to some interviews and I watched some like video essays, but there was one that compared it almost specifically to Seven in terms of the editing. Since everything is long, almost everything is long takes. So every interrogation or conversation just plays out almost in one shot.
Yeah.
Whereas Seven, is much more stylized, I guess. But it was interesting. I thought that whole style was interesting. That really gives it the meditative feel and makes it feel probably longer than it actually is. Because it's only like an hour and 50 minutes, but it feels pretty long.
It does. It's just because it's so slow. Like literally, there's no editing, there's no camera movement. Obviously this is an exaggeration, but I think all of that stuff, kind of makes it seem like it's about 4 hours long.
Well, I know Kurosawa, but he does a lot of minimalism in his work. He's kind of known for that, with as little shots as possible, showing barely any violence. I think it's just all tension or lack thereof. I don't even know.
Well, I think it is tension, though. Yeah, because it's, especially in filmmaking in general, a long take usually is or should be used as tension, Like it's, when is it going to go off? It's used that way a lot in this because it's those long takes usually has the murder, whatever murder is going to occur, but you don't see it coming, And then somebody just murders someone like casually all of a sudden. And it also feels like, I feel like this one works the best in terms of his use of minimalism from what I've seen, just because it makes you like, it works with the tension, and it also just makes you like, it's one of those movies I want to watch again because I just feel like, where am I supposed to focus? You know what I mean? Because it's a long take, and the camera does move sometimes, but not a lot. But you're kind of just going. It's not really telling you where to look and what to observe, so you're constantly kind of going, what is important?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad you guys liked it. Rewatching it, I was like, oh man, this is a lot slower than I remember. It's also interesting. I didn't really notice it until I read this later that there's basically no score, but there's always like weird electrical hums or drones or like, there's always like some weird background noise that's like, you don't really notice, but it's there.
No, that makes sense because I don't know. I wasn't thinking about it, but then as you said it, I was trying to think back and like, oh yeah, there wasn't really. And I think that's probably also why it may make things feel a little bit slower. And score somehow does help with that.
Yeah. What else is there to say? I did notice a couple things before we're done. That I guess, like, basically, it seemed like the Mamaya and the detective's wife had they had a similar memory loss. It doesn't really, I don't know that it goes anywhere with the wife exactly, because he just drops her off at that, like, hospital.
Yeah, he finally has enough of her too.
Yeah, that was the interesting part because he's clearly like struggling with his wife who has amnesia of some sort.
Or like dementia. Yeah, it was weird because it's like they don't ever say, like this is what her problem is. It's just she's fucking obviously like, she got like early Alzheimer's or I don't fucking know, but really weird.
There's a couple, because when that happened, I can't remember now the other titles, but I know I've seen it multiple times in kind of Japanese crime thrillers that focus on the cop where their wife, maybe it was Suicide Club, maybe not, I can't remember, but there's always something where the wife has some little condition, but it's never really talked fully about.
It's in Fireworks, which is a Beat Takashi. It's like a crime thing, but same thing,
I know it. Yeah, I've seen it a bunch of times, and when he said it, I don't know. I had some weird deja vu, feeling like I watched the movie, but I hadn't before.
I feel like it's a common trope.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess there's all there is to. That's all I got, really.
Okay. Yeah, we all. Well, I'm not sure about Josh, but I know I really enjoyed it.
I mean, I didn't dislike it, and it was the first time I'd seen it, so I didn't want to know anything about it. So it was definitely different. But the biggest thing, I think, it was like as soon as it was over and I looked it up and saw Kurosawa, I saw 1990. It's like fucking A, yeah, this fits into that kind of that era for sure, and that type of I guess the beginning of the giant J horror boom. So I mean, and I'm not saying that in a bad way at all. It just it was noticeable to me.
Yeah, and I mean, I think obviously I don't think it's horror, but I think Kurosawa's style there's like a creepiness throughout.
Yeah, it's not Pulse, but it's definitely along those lines, though.
I know in all of his stuff, well, maybe with the exception of Sweet Home, is never necessarily considered, or he doesn't try and market it as horror. Like even Pulse, that's clearly a horror movie. I think they also say it's a psychological drama, or they pull a lot of that stuff with it. Like I looked up the specific rank or genre of this, and I think they just kind of say crime and then drama. That's it. That's all they say. Or, things like that. There's some other one, Charisma, I think.
Yeah, Charisma.
There's some that.
Yeah, none of at least those three, which I've seen. Yeah, they're like, there's no classifiable genre. There's like it's kind of crime. Maybe there's horror. There's drama. There's some like deadpan comedy. Like I don't know what this is. All right, so that's Cure. Yeah, so then we're moving on to my other pick, Anguish from 1987, directed by Bigas Lagunas or Lunas. I don't know how to say his first name. Bigas. Yeah, and this one is hard to even synopsize because it starts off as a movie of this orderly in some part of the eye section of the hospital whose mom is like crazy and he's going around, he like snaps and he's going around cutting people's eyes out for some reason. But then we pull back and that's a movie within a movie. And then there's a shooter in the movie theater. So this is just a weird ass fucking movie.
Yeah.
But
you left out that it pulls back again and we're a movie within a movie within a movie.
Yeah. It's movie on movie. It's a 3-way meta movie.
Yep.
But it's I saw this at like a midnight screening and it kind of blew my mind. I wonder what it was like to see it when it came out, because to see it now and in a movie theater with all the meta movie theater shit, but also with the fact that we like movie theater shootings are now like a kind of a commonplace thing to us.
Yeah,
it seems like way ahead of its time in that regard.
Yeah, that was actually kind of made me laugh when, you know, the dude just all of a sudden ups and starts shooting motherfuckers in a movie theater. I'm like, damn, this is not going to be for everyone.
No.
In the opening, we're kind of there's a narrator who tells you.
Oh yeah.
That there are hypnotic images that
and I didn't see any.
Yeah, that shouldn't have a lasting effect, and that if somebody approaches you, that's a stranger, not to talk to them. So the original movie, the movie within the movie within the movie is supposed to be hypnosis, or what is it? Having an effect on the movie within a movie.
Yes.
And those audience or some just for people listening, trying to explain, I guess, what is happening.
Yeah, you probably need to see it to understand. But there was a couple shots, Josh, of like the thing with the lines spinning.
Oh yeah.
But not a lot. I don't know.
What was the, because I forgot all about that warning at the beginning, but as soon as Craig mentioned it, I was like, I remember like actively looking for this subliminal shit, and I didn't see anything.
I don't know if there's any subliminal shit, but there was Zelda Rubinstein, the guy's mother. She like puts on a record or something on the turntable when she's like communicating to him like psychically, and there's like that, you know, like that typical hypnotic like lines spinning.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's
okay. I do remember that.
That's the only thing I can think of. I don't know that there was anything else, unless we got to go like frame by frame or something.
There's that weird, but then I don't know, where it shows his face. Yeah, and his face is spinning, and there's the white lines.
Oh, okay.
Behind. But it's very brief, and it's right when that's happening. It's, I think, right before the shooting start. I don't know. There's a bunch of other stuff going on at that time that it's easy to kind of miss. The only reason why I think I caught it is because I paused at that point to go grab something or to drink or whatever. So.
Okay. So it's there, barely.
Yeah.
So, what did you guys think of this movie?
It was good. It was really jarring to have that first pullback and, you know, oh, this is a movie, you know. I don't know that it really worked that well. But then, you know, it gets to the point where, at least for me, it was like it was almost like doing some kind of commentary about watching horror films, I guess, because not just because that's what you're watching. This is going to sound really fucking stupid, but it was to me, it was making some kind of commentary on the act of watching a horror film. I'm not sure what it was, but that's what I got out of it. You know, and it was also like life imitating art type of bullshit, cliched saying too. So I mean, it had a lot of interesting ideas for sure. The only thing that kind of detracted for me was the acting was bad. It was just bad. Even Zelda Rubinstein was not. I mean, it was to the, you know, it was just to the point where it was like, you know, she was so over the top nutty that, you know, it was hard to take any of it seriously. And the dude, you know, that played her son, he was probably the best one, and he wasn't really that good. You know, and then the two female actresses in the theater watching the movie that we were watching, they were just fucking god awful.
You're hurting Kyle here.
Oh, you're hurting me.
I mean, again, that it wasn't like it completely, turned me off to it, but it was just, I think it was the ideas in the film were interesting enough that it didn't really matter, but it was just really noticeable. Go ahead. Sorry.
Craig.
So, first of all, for those of you that are listening, so you don't have to look it up or anything, Zelda Rubinstein she's most famous probably for Medium and Poltergeist. Yeah, just so.
And
who we're talking about.
And Michael Lerner is her son, who's in a ton of stuff. He's in a lot of Coen Brothers things. Yeah.
So I mean, they're two kind of well-known character actors, I would say. So there's partial that I agree with Josh that I think the first pullback. Well, I don't know. Maybe it was the editing or something, but you watch a good portion kind of the movie within the movie within the movie. And then there's the pullback, and we get to see the theater reaction kind of, but then it'll do this like where it'll go back into the movie but come out. So there's kind of this weird it's not hard to follow in that sense, but it does feel, I guess going off of what Josh is saying, it does feel a little jarring, because normally I guess we'd be used to like watching the first movie, then a pullback, seeing the effects of this new story, then the final pullback or whatever, something. But yeah, there's a lot of kind of back and forth. I think they're trying to. I mean, I'm guessing part of it was to make it as jarring, so you're not really comfortable as an audience member, and that works. But yeah, there's definitely, you could tell, because it was a Spanish film, but it's in English, and you could tell there's, that some of the characters have that spaghetti western element where they're dubbed. I think none of the main actors that I could tell, maybe, but yeah, there's like the side characters that they're definitely dubbed. But no, I think overall I liked it. I was probably the movie the theater, even though the acting was better in the first part, I almost liked the theater's story. I wanted to see more of that. But yeah, I don't know. It's like I'm trying to pick and choose what parts you want, but they're so like smushed together that it's not necessarily an anthology in a sense, but I don't know. I don't even know where I'm going with what I'm talking about anymore.
It is, yeah. I mean, I think the meta aspects are super interesting, but yeah, it does get fairly convoluted to cut between them, because it also kind of negates the stakes.
Yeah.
When you cut from a guy cutting eyes out to people watching in a movie theater, it really de-escalates the whole story there for a little bit and like brings it almost to a stop. I got to rebut here and say that I think Zelda Rubinstein and Michael Lerner are the best actors in it by far. And I say that because once you realize they're in a movie, then the fact that she's over the top, I think, works. I do think everyone else comes off very strange, a lot because of what Craig said, because it's a Spanish movie and they're clearly dubbed. But yeah, they are kind of, I hesitate to say they're even bad. It just, you just feel like, what is going on? Like they're on another planet.
Dude, those two chicks were fucking awful.
Yeah, it also wasn't like a very good conflict for one to be afraid and the other isn't, and and we're saying it over and over and over and over. It's like, shut the fuck up, dude. Don't say that again. Yeah, that just goes on and on until you realize, okay, this one dude's going crazy and he's going to shoot up the theater. I think it picks up steam again once it's got those like juxtapositions where Michael Lerner goes to a theater and then he's like killing people in the lobby, and they're watching that happen, and there's actually a dude in the lobby killing people. slightly more like realistic. Yeah, I still think it's like a really interesting idea, but I agree with you guys that like it's clearly trying to make some comment on the act of watching movies, but it doesn't really. It feels like it never.
What?
Yeah, it never gets to it. I don't know. It doesn't really have a point that it's trying to make.
Now, do you think it's one of those? We've dealt with a couple of them on this podcast so far. Do you think it's one of those that might have been there was something lost in translation? Like being that it was a Spanish film initially converting to English, that there might have been, like if they did it in the native, in their native language of Spanish, that there'd be.
I'd say that's possible, but I kind of think it might have been like produced primarily to be an English language film. So I don't know if it was like, I don't know. And I haven't seen any of this guy's other movies. I don't know if he's made any other horror movies, but yeah, I don't know. But we have that hypnosis theme, unintentional, between the two films, so that's good.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I know.
What?
I don't know if you guys had this thought, and I imagine that you probably did, but it was just like when it was over, I just was like hit by the fact that this dude really likes Baba's Demons.
Oh, probably, yeah.
Because that came out first.
Oh yeah.
And it was only like a couple of years before, and the similarities between the films there's a lot of them. This one goes a little more convoluted, a little more complicated, I guess. But they're very similar.
Demons is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Right. It's better.
Yeah.
If you have not seen Demons, we recommend watching Demons.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, I know I heard about Anguish because wasn't it they did a re-release, or they did maybe something on Blu-ray, or I don't know how or who posted about it, but I didn't hear about it until a year ago, and then something came out on the movie.
Probably true. I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't really. I don't know. It doesn't fully come together, but it's interesting. But yeah, I think the part of the jarring effect too of the movie within a movie reveal is it's like 20 minutes in.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, Craig, of like normally we would be let in on that fact a lot earlier.
Yeah.
I feel like you get so deep into it, and then you're like, oh, okay, what? It's a totally different movie.
Or you do, the other element would be like the big one right now, the one cut of the dead, where it's like you get the however long it is, 35-minute cut.
Yeah.
And then it goes into basically the completely new story. In a way, you're still seeing, but I mean that seems to be the other option, where you're kind of getting two stories out of one instead of, I guess, these two stories playing out simultaneously.
Yeah.
What
like almost like a more complete story.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm gonna go ahead and say, I mean, I think this is Zelda Rubinstein at her second best after Poltergeist. She's gonna get all the fucking eyes, Josh.
That could, you might be right.
I also love that we never find out. I mean, not that we need to know, but like, why the fuck are they cutting people's eyes out?
Oh, you don't know that?
Other than he's going blind, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, that's not why. I don't even know what I was looking at. But okay, and maybe this is a bunch of bullshit, but after it was over, I obviously started reading shit about it, and something that I found said that, you know, because basically Zelda Rubinstein was controlling her kid, right? Like via telepathy or some shit.
Yeah.
And so she was the reason that she was instructing him or making him, you know, cut out eyeballs is because that's what gave her power.
Okay. That still doesn't make sense.
It doesn't, right? So I don't know what I read, but I was just like, how the fuck do you know that?
Well, you know, the one thing that's interesting though is it's all about voyeurism, and there's cutting out eyes. Yeah, Craig.
That's true.
No, I agree. I think it's one of those things too when you do a plot like that, where you're splitting up the movie with the movie, or you know, all across the board, any sort of, you know, where you're cutting up the story, it allows you the opportunity to not have to explain certain things.
Yeah.
That you would normally if it was a whole feature length of that, you know, specific story.
Yeah, I was gonna. Yeah, I mean, it kind of has the Grindhouse get out of jail free card.
Yeah.
We can do whatever we want. Doesn't matter.
Well, and I mean, especially too, like once the big reveal is that, you know, this isn't real, this is a movie, then it's like, who really gives a shit now, you know?
Just me.
I just mean like in terms of like, you know,
No, I know.
The rules or whatever. Like, who cares?
Yeah. That's Anguish.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you for listening to Kyle's pick episode. We talked about Cure and Anguish. Next time we meet will be Josh's picks, where we will do, Josh, if you want to let everybody know.
We're going to do Death Warmed Up, and we're going to do Housewife. And I picked these two because they're both foreign, and neither one of them makes any sense. But one of them's good, and the other one is not.
Okay, there you go. And they're both on, as of right now, they're both on Amazon Prime, and I think one of them's on Tubi or something. They're both available to find online for free.
Yes.
You know, if you want to watch them before you hear us talk about them. So thanks for listening.
See you later, guys.
Please like, subscribe, follow, tweet, TikTok, Snapchat, do the social media things.
I believe listening to Bloodhound Pix has proven to be the best decision I have ever made.
Bloodhound Pix podcast is produced by Josh Lee, Craig Dram, and Kyle Hintz. Music by Raymond Seed. Audio editing by Kyle Hintz.